Hey guys, and welcome to a special edition of the Investor Club with me and Robert. We are doing this live, so bear with us if there's any kind of technical difficulties and stuff. I think just to get the bookkeeping out of the way, our strategy is going to be that we're going to launch this video on our main channel. But we do have a new channel that will actually be where all these will eventually go. But for now, we're going to start off where giving you guys a chance to kind of catch us and see these shows live. So we'll air these live on the main channel and then publish them onto the new channel that's just going to be for this show. And once we have that going and there's a little more momentum, we'll switch over to just going live on that new channel. So that kind of gets out of the way. Robert, thank you for joining us. Good to see you, man. How you doing?
Good to see you too, man. It's good. It's been a good day overall, so I'm happy about it.
Yeah. So we have a interesting day today. Some really cool topics planned. The theme of this show is going to be commercial EVs, and the reason why I think that's really interesting is because in the world of electric vehicles, most people think of passenger cars like your Teslas and Rivians. But the reality is, for a lot of people, the benefits of electric vehicles will take years to realize. For example, if you drive 10,000 miles a year, it'll take you 10 years to get to 100,000 miles before you realize benefits like no water pumps, no oil changes, and no spark plugs to change. All the heavy duty maintenance of a gas car. So for the average person, you're buying a car that's potentially $5,000-6,000 more expensive up front to go EV, but you're not really getting the value for many years. That is not the case with commercial cars, because with commercial EVs, you're actually going to have buses and vans and like semis that are going to be racking up miles, possibly 500,000 miles a year. So the benefit of going electric is going to shine. And for a lot of people, it's going to make more financial sense. So today, we're talking about commercial EVs. Robert, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'd love to. I want to talk about one that's near and dear probably to you here in about the next 5 or 6 years. When you put those little ones off to school, they're going to be on a school bus, and the one I want to talk about is Lion Electric, and they're really interesting for a couple of features. So they are an all electric school bus, and one we didn't talk about last week on the charging system was Fuel, and their vehicle to grid system that they have, and the vehicle to vehicle system that they will be coming out with. So Lion partnered with Fuel to make a vehicle to grid system and a vehicle to vehicle system. So the cool thing about it is you can actually pull the school buses into the school, and they're basically mini batteries backups for the school that they're actually at. So it's a really cool thing. Anyway, they're trading right now under the ticker NGA, which if you look at my screen here, you'll see that they've got a really nice, steady graph on them. They're well set for there. Coming on. So they're quite steady. They haven't really made any drastic moves in the last couple of days, and I think that they're gonna hold for a little bit.
Yeah, sorry,
You agree?
I'm not sure if I was. Yeah, I'm not sure if I was able to get your screen, but
No, not yet.
so yeah, this is. I'll see if we can bring up your screen here. So that's going to be something we have to make sure to figure out. So yeah, that's really interesting. The big thing with electric vehicles is you're sitting on a huge battery pack. And one of the questions that always comes up is, oh, renewables really nice and all, but what happens when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow? Well, the answer is you have huge multi-hundred kilowatt hour battery packs sitting here. And so imagine if while you're not using your bus, for example, like school buses is a really perfect example. So you have this like 200 kilowatt hour battery pack on a school bus. It does its morning rounds and then it sits there, and it does its evening rounds and then it sits there. I think what'll be interesting is what we could potentially see is we might see a situation where the let me just get my desktop. So we might see a situation where we can actually have there we go. And I think I had
Richie, do you want
this
to
one here.
restart?
So here we'll have buses
Yep.
that are sitting around for a couple of hours at a time. And let's say like 5 o'clock rolls around, peak time, you can have these buses kind of adding stability to the grid. Maybe the solar is dying down, the battery packs are full, and it discharges all through the night. And then the buses are maybe like completely empty when, midnight rolls around. And then they could potentially just charge back up at the normal times when people would be going back to school. So midnight to like 6 or 7 a.m., you'd be charging back up at the super low rate. So what's really
Yeah.
crazy is you have this bus that only has to work about, let's call it like 4 or 5 hours a day. But the other
If
19
that, yeah.
hours, it could be, if that, yeah. I mean, I'm being kind of generous potentially because I think some schools might start at different times. There's probably some school
Yeah.
logistics that somebody will know about, but you have the rest of the time it could just be adding stability to the grid, and that is a huge, huge benefit. A lot of people say, how are you going to
What?
charge all the electric vehicles? How are you going to, you can't do it without nuclear power, for example. I've heard that all the time because you can't really rely on the wind and the sun 24 hours a day. But if you have a bunch of commercial vehicles that have really good long range, long life battery packs that are adding stability, that's how you do it. And now suddenly they don't
And you got
become
to
a
think,
detriment, they
Ricky, that
become the answer.
these vehicles, a majority of the school buses. So there's almost 500,000 school buses out there, and you got to think that most of them, the max speed that they do is about 30, 40 miles an hour, if that. Of course, there's some that hit the freeway, and there's some that go beyond that. But low speed, that's where EVs really shine on their own. So you've got, and I'm just gonna do the rough math on this. You got, a 100 kilowatt battery pack in these school buses. 500,000 times, 100 kilowatts. That's a quite a massive extent of batteries that you've got that you can, recharge the system from, and that could really bring some stability, especially like with California, with the power grid in California. That it'll bring some stability to it. This is being trialed in, I believe, in New York State, part of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, and I think that it's going to go quite well. So far, they're very happy with it. They've had nothing but good reports so far.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting how that'll vary in a place like New York, where, like, for example, in the wintertime, like it is right now, I don't know how much energy you're getting from solar. Probably none. There might be like snow, and there's going to be quite a drop off. So I'm curious how that plays versus a place like California, where you have more sunshine, a little more stability. The battery pack, though, I'd imagine can really bring some stability either way, because maybe like you don't need
Yeah.
peaker plants, you could have these batteries provide power. So there's so many little nuances to this, but that's a huge player. You got to imagine if you're going to go electric, fire trucks, right, ambulances, and all like the emergency response vehicles, police vehicles, those big transportation buses, fleet
Yeah.
cargo semis, school buses. The school bus is actually one I kind of forgot about, but yeah, you need to have electric school buses, and there are companies out there working on these problems, which is the really cool part about it. What's really crazy is
So
it's almost like everybody around the world got the message and realized we got to start building these various types of vehicles, and they're all kind of tackling it.
yeah. So the merger is supposed to close in the first quarter of 2021. So it'll be really interesting to see close to the February timeframe, see what that does to the ticket price. I personally have got, they're about 10% of my portfolio right now. I picked them up, and they're quite happy where they're at. So it'll be interesting to see how they peak and where they go from there. I envision them being a long-term hold, and just a general, long-term asset.
So do you
But
think is there a timeline when they're going to go public, by the way?
yeah, they're going to go public by the end of Q1 of 2021. So looking like probably the March timeframe, I would assume they're probably going to be at the very end of that. Um, The one caveat that I have about it is this is not their first time going. Hey Ricky, your text messages are up. There you go. This is not their first time. The company has tried to go with a SPAC. They went initially with the Shift Group, ticker symbol SHYF, and they were trying to create an all-electric bus chassis then, and it I don't know if it just didn't go well or if they changed their plans, but they decided to get a new SPAC and go that way. So it'll be interesting to see if this one comes up. This one's kind of a black horse because it could either go or it could disintegrate. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens.
Sounds like we need to cover it again if kind of more is discovered about it, or we figure out some breaking news that we don't know now.
Yeah, I think this one would be good probably to cover again, like in February or January, probably February timeframe when it gets closer to the actual SPAC acquisition. So.
Yeah. By the way, just I think the technical challenge that we're having right now is that nobody's able to join the live stream. Juan, is that still the case? He doesn't see the link anywhere. He's not able to join it anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't either. That's and I was going to bring it up. I don't see it anywhere on YouTube, and I don't see it anywhere on subscriptions or anything.
I think I see what happened. It might.
Did you forget to click the button?
No, it might be that we need to be okay. So what we might do, Robert, is we might just start over, which is probably a good thing. And
do you want to start it at the top of the hour?
Yeah, we could. So
it's not. It's
private. That's why it was not public.
Ah.
Hey, while we're still private, let me do this. I want to make this scene. How do I make this? How do I assign a person? I wanted this to be, there we go. So now we can lock that. So now that's Robert's.
There we go.
Okay, so that's Robert's screen. That move that down there. And so there's that. And I can go to Robert's screen. Cool, that's your screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm going to just launch this again. All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right. I guess we'll start with this. All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. So
you're
we had a little
live.
snafu. We had a little snafu because we had gone live. I'm joined by Robert. We had gone live, but I didn't make the stream public.
Ricky, we're still not live. I'm still seeing the
No, there's a delay. Don't worry about that. It's 20 seconds delayed. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're gonna be Look, this is part of the fun. You know, when I these days are the funnest because there's something fun about just being like raw off the cuff and live. So welcome to episode 2 of the Investor Club. In case you were wondering, Robert. Take two. We're gonna cut this thing down a little bit, but this is episode 2, and what we're gonna do, by the way, just a little bit of bookkeeping before we get started. We're gonna go live on this channel for maybe 5 or 10 episodes, and then when we're done, we'll pull that feed down and we will upload it to our new channel. There's gonna be a channel just for this, and we'll have a Patreon just for that, and a Discord server just for the investors, because I want to make sure that the people who join want to hear about that, and we keep everybody happy. That being said, we'll go live on this channel and move it over. This is episode 2, and thank you, Robert, for joining me and putting up with this. We've pretty much had every possible problem. Robert's camera stopped working at one point.
Yep, that's why I'm on my backup camera now, and it's been a fun episode, but it's all good. The thing is, Ricky, we're here to talk about everything that's going on, and we're here to talk about investments. So,
what better way to talk about technology than have all the utter misery and heartache of when it doesn't work right? Yes. So today,
and
the episode,
everything failing on us today.
The theme today, what we're going to be talking about is commercial EVs, and the reason why that's really interesting is right now, when you think about an electric vehicle, you're talking about like a Chevy Bolt or a Tesla, Rivian's coming online, personal vehicles. But the thing is, currently, personal vehicles, the EV world is probably $5,000 or $6,000 more expensive than the gas car, and you basically recoup that over time. But the average person, if you drive at that 10,000 miles a year, it'll take you 10 years before you hit that 100,000 mile mark. At that point, you'll save on water pumps and cooling, timing chains, all kinds of crazy complex maintenance things. So the reality is, for the average person, the EV will just take you years to really see the value of it. But if you do this for a business, if you drive a UPS truck or school buses, we're going to talk about that. These sorts of commercial vehicles, they might see half a million miles in a year. So they're going to have the greatest value proposition for moving to EV. And when they start to transition, that's going to move the industry in a major way. So that is the topic for episode 2. We're going to talk about the commercial sector of EVs. And there's some pretty exciting startups that we're going to talk about. Robert, why don't you start us off here?
Yeah, no problem. So this one will be really important to you in about maybe 5-6 years when your little ones are going off to school. And that's going to be Lion Electric. And so they're currently trading under Northern Genesis Acquisition, NGA is the ticker symbol for them. And what it is they have developed a bus that is an EV program, and it gives them about 100 miles of range, which is, when you think about it, for a school bus, that's actually a really good setup. But the whole thing is, they actually bought a Lion bus. So the Lion Bus 360 is what they're calling it, and that's the bus that they had. So they went out and they bought an old bus that they had, converted it to electric, and then started developing the whole entire drivetrain around it. And if you think about it, a bus runs for maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, give or take a little bit, and you've got almost 500,000 school buses out there. And those buses, when they're not there, they're just sitting there. They're big, giant battery packs. And they partnered previously on this test run that they're doing in New York with the New York New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. These people come up with the weirdest names, I tell you.
It has to sound very bureaucratic,
It absolutely must be bureaucratic. But they partnered with Nuvve, who I think we talked about last week, which is a vehicle-to-grid, vehicle-to-vehicle system that's also going to be going through a SPAC. And they basically set it up where they've got 10 of these school buses running around New York to some of the schools, and they're doing the routes. And again, thinking about it, you've got 72 kids on a bus for only about 5 hours out of the day, and you're able to basically have this giant battery pack sitting around for the rest of the day to give all of the infrastructure to the systems. So you get these school buses that are powered by big batteries, and you can go ahead and supply the system during the rest of the day, and then you can also supply the school when you park it at the school to give you your school some backup, kind of like a mobile Tesla Powerwall. So this one is going to come online. The actual acquisition is going to happen probably in about end of Q1 of 2021, so around the March timeframe. I would say probably revisit this one maybe in January or February, close to the acquisition date, because it'd be interesting to see where they come off. Currently, they're about 5 to 10% of my portfolio, and I'm definitely going to probably pick up some more of them and keep them on the hold. So
Okay, yeah. So they've got a really cool concept. They're still pretty early, as all these companies are. You have to raise funds. That's what people always say. Where are your cars? Show me your sales. Well, building an electric bus, an electric school bus, you can imagine, is capital intensive. So they're raising funds and they're early. But what's really nice is that little program they had in New York. That was a nice, showing off the fact that these buses operate and they can provide the grid stability. One comment I get from all of like many people on our YouTube videos is solar and wind won't work. What happens when the sun's not shining, when there's no wind? Well, the answer really is you got to have batteries. And what better way than to have batteries on wheels that do their job when they're driving kids around? And when they're not, they get to provide stability. How cool would it be to think that these buses come home after their final shift, they get parked, they get plugged in, and they now can power the cities from 5 to 9 p.m. peak time, which is typically when you have to turn on peaker power plants, which are typically natural gas and they're very dirty. So now you can power off batteries, and maybe by midnight the buses are almost empty, and they kick back on and charge at midnight when there's very low demand, and they're ready for the next day. This is the sort of cleverness that happens when you shift ideas and kind of a way of thinking. V2G is going to be huge virtual power plants, and I think companies that get it are the ones that realize you don't have utilization numbers that are very high. The bus is going to work only a couple of hours a day. Let's provide value in other ways. And so, yeah, I'm excited, and I think that's going to be a fun company to keep track of. I think at this
so
point,
one of the
I'd want to know more, but I'm open to the idea of investing in them.
Yeah, one thing about them as well is they've also got a like a U-Haul box van type that they're rolling out. It's the Class 6 and the Class 8, and I think that actually is also going to help out some of the freight industry. And we're going to talk about the freight industry later on. Your favorite man, Mr. Elon Musk, and his Tesla. So we'll talk about that here in a second.
Okay, really
But
quickly,
I want
some of the.
to
Go ahead.
I wanted to switch gears because I was going to talk about um, Arrival and
Sure.
their box systems.
Before we jump to Rival, just really quickly, thank you guys for joining the live chat. This is new and crazy and sporadic and hectic, but I appreciate you guys joining us. League of Noobs asked about the River Simples hydrogen car. I'll have to look into that. I'm not very bullish on hydrogen cars for personal use. I think there's a better way with battery electric, but I think hydrogen maybe has a future in other aspects like freight, big freight liners and things. But we'll cover that maybe in the future. Maybe do an entire episode on hydrogen. And the second thing is Lucid Motors and their V2G. Absolutely, I have a bunch of videos coming out on my channel about Lucid Motors, and I'll make one about the V2G aspect of it. But it's super cool. Their Wonderbox inverter works both ways, and again, the vehicle to grid thing, which is a big deal. All right, so should I jump into Arrival then?
Yeah, I just want to cover up one thing. David, thank you for joining us. He had a question about the why NGA spiked about a month ago. So honestly, really quick research on it. It looks like that's when they decided that they were going to go ahead and do a redistribution, and that redistribution is why it spiked, and it was just an adjustment of the stocks, and then it back to normal. I wouldn't see it as too much of a worry. So
You want to spell out what is NGA?
NGA is Northern Genesis Acquisition. That's the company that their line will be acquiring.
Got it. Yeah, as far as like the movement of the stock and things, we can possibly touch on that more as we have time. But let's jump into topic number 2, yeah?
Yep.
So up next we're talking about Arrival. So Arrival is a company that I'm really interested in. I've had the pleasure of speaking with the company. I spoke with their chief experience officer. He is in charge of what actually a customer will look at, will see, what a fleet customer would buy, the entire end-to-end life cycle. And what's really cool about that title and that job is that's a very tech hip kind of a topic, a title. Most companies that sell, like a Ryder, or companies that sell big freight liners aren't worried about the experience of it. They just sell this truck, and that's how they've always done it. But Arrival is really a revision. And when I say that, what's really nice is they have some really interesting takes on how they're going to handle the electrification of some of these commercial aspects. For one, they have the Arrival bus, which is pretty pretty damn cool looking bus, I have to say. And I think the fact that they are founded and they are based out of the UK and they're in London really shines because I think big cities are the ones that probably have the most interest in electric buses. The amount of smog and the other issues that have kind of subsided since the COVID pandemic has taken foot has left air quality so high that people don't want to go back. London has never been cleaner. So for people, the gentleman I spoke with, his name is Kwame. He was saying that like the air quality had never been higher. So people in London, this is the kind of moment when they look back and they're gonna go, I don't want to go back to old buses. Like let's get the new age of stuff in there. And they also make a van, and their big call to fame. What makes them really interesting is their approach is kind of counter to what's really been more popular lately, and that is they're going to go into the opposite direction and build micro factories. A micro factory is kind of the opposite of what Tesla does, where they have this gigafactory and everything happens under one roof. Everything from the cell manufactured, battery pack production, car stamping and assembly, and everything else. What they're thinking is EVs are very modular, and they're building a platform. And so as a result, they can build, and so the bus and the van that they're going to build will have a shared architecture. And they're really putting their money where their mouth is when they talk about architecture. Everyone talks about skateboards, right? Tesla skateboard, and Lucid has a skateboard design which will house both of their cars, the SUV in the future. So this is saying, what if we build a little factory here that just does this part, and it becomes like Lego pieces, and you do that, and they come together. What this will allow them to do is have lower capex, lower capital expenditure, and be able to get off the ground and building EVs with much less money upfront than they would need otherwise. They also have some other really cool innovations. Like for example, they're coming up with this interesting approach of even how they're going to have color in their design. So they have this color infused composite body paneling. And what that means is that once you have your car built, you don't then have to take it to a paint shop. And for anybody who knows about EVs or just car manufacturers in general, paint shops take up a ton of the floor space that these cars require. So yeah, as I mentioned, their first microfactories are going to be in the UK. And stay tuned, because we mentioned the whole point of a microfactory is you can build the cars where you're going to sell them. And so the first microfactory in the US will be in South Carolina. And they plan on building prototype buses here in the near term. So Arrival is a company that I think really kind of understands, and they have a path ahead of them. They're not building 20 things. That's what always bugged me about Nikola, is they were like, we're building an RV and a jet ski and this and that. Okay, well, why don't you have a structure of how you're going to roll out products? And so for them, two things: bus, van. And what's really interesting is they have about $1.5 billion in purchase agreements from UPS. So UPS, again, being a customer that knows the value proposition of EVs and how much money they can save running these trucks 500,000 miles a year, they're on the hook. They're going to buy 10,000 with the option to buy 10,000 more. So Arrival is a company I'm invested in. I have about 15% of my portfolio, I'd say, in Arrival right now. And their market cap is around $1 billion right now from their blank check company, CIIC. But the goal is they're hoping to be valued around $5 billion post merger. So what do you think, Robert? What's your take on Arrival?
I like Arrival as far as a ticker and everything. I really do like them. So I'm with Ricky. I've got about a 5% stake in them as far as acquisition style. I do they definitely have been on the uptake recently. I have both regular stocks in them, and I also have warrants in them. And we're going to cover warrants in another episode. That was something that was asked, but
I was gonna
we're
ask you to
definitely
do
going to
it
cover
now.
warrants. Okay, so a warrant, for basically the lack of a better term, a warrant is a willingness to buy something at a later time. You buy a warrant basically, in the fact that you're saying I'm committed enough that I'm going to buy more, but I'm not going to buy them right now, if that makes sense.
It's kind of a
And you buy
I
them
love you, but I'm not in love with you situation, from what I take.
exactly. And so the nice thing about warrants is the fact that you basically they're small portions, and you can basically give up a bunch of the small portions to give up one full stock at price. Um, a stock warrant allows the holder to receive the newly issued stock when they come out, at the same price that they quoted at the original. So, like for example, my warrants are sitting at. In fact, let me look real quickly. By the way, for anyone interested, it's CIICW. The W at the end is the warrant. That's not always the case, by the way. There are other ones that do not carry that legislation over, but in this case, it is the W at the end. For me, that's a full 1% of my portfolio, and mine are at $4.47. And if you look at the CIIC, it's currently sitting at $30 and almost $31 right now. So.
Wow.
Really good day for them today. They had sorry, my screen jumped over. They had about a 10% gain today, just on itself. So I'm really happy about that. And they've done well for themselves today. So
Yeah, one thing you have to we mentioned this in episode 1. If you're like a stalwart investor, you don't have to pay attention to this part. But if you're newer to investing and like you really love what's happening with electric vehicles and you believe in that mantra of ours that and put your money where your mouth is and you want to invest in the future you want to see, remember that these companies carry a lot of speculation, a lot of like Me Too and a fear of missing out, and so you're going to have these big kind of ups and downs. CIIG has changed 10-15% almost every couple of days as people are kind of feeling it out and kind of figuring out if they want to get in or not. So that's to be expected. It doesn't really speak to the fundamentals of the company. The company's not doing anything different. They're getting up in the morning, having a cup of coffee and working just like they were the day before. But there's that kind of sense of speculation. So that is
I do
Arrival.
want to touch one thing on warrants as well, really quickly. Is warrants aren't like regular stocks, in the fact that they actually have an expiration date on them. So the time that you purchase them, the warrants will have an expiration. So, example, I've got another set of warrants that actually expires 2022. If I don't, cash them in by then, I lose them. They're gone forever and off to the netherworld. So they're kind of like sweeteners to get it well done, and they're definitely, they have their point, and I think that it could be well used in the future for these guys. So that's why I carry both of them.
I just saw Jessica joined, Jessica Kirsch. I actually follow Jessica on Twitter. Hey, it's really awesome that you could join. Yeah, let us know if you have any questions and stuff. While Robert transitions into the next one, you want to get started on the next one?
Absolutely. And this one's going to be really cool. So this one is Motiv, Motiv. And the thing is, the reason that I really like them is they actually don't have a blank check company yet. And they don't have anything coming out. And that's the really cool thing about it, is they're literally on the cusp of going with a SPAC. They have stated many, many times that they will be going with a SPAC. They just have not found the right one yet. And I'm really interested to see where this one comes out. The thing is, they're very similar to Lion, and also Arrival. They are doing a bus style architecture and a van style architecture. And they're really their true claim to fame is they're actually powered by Winnebago. So they actually get Winnebago investments to help them. And in 2009, they gave them 60 million to really give them a good bolstering. So I could see this one really coming into its own really quickly.
Super early still, right?
Very early.
But
And
you mentioned Winnebago. One thing, so speaking of what we need if we're all going to go electric, the kinds of different vehicles we got to replace, the RV. My dad just got an RV about a year ago, and we've done one little RV holiday, and we're going to do another one. But where's the EV RV, and who'll be the first to make it? So Winnebago is an interesting company because I mean, what they really do is they buy a chassis, a platform from some other company, and they make it a Winnebago. So might they begin to make their own chassis in an electric world, or license from a company like Arrival or Motiv, or and so it sounds like they've got some investment in Motiv or like some ownership stake, right?
yeah, I think what they would do is they would. So not only do they have Winnebago, I'll come back to that in a second, but not only do they have Winnebago, um, also Ford and BMW have got a stake in them as well. So they're really they're getting some headway on them. I mean, Ford is doing a lot, and I know that Ricky always harps on the legacy car manufacturers, but I like them. Is the fact that they are kind of embracing it. They're not truly shying away from it, um, but they're definitely moving forward to electrification. So it'll be really interesting. But basically, it's a Ford 500 chassis, I think it is, that Motiv has got, and they allow them to transition over to it. So
So
could be
David asked,
interesting.
yeah, David asked about the ticker. So Motiv doesn't have a target yet. It doesn't have a target merger company yet, right? So we're still waiting for that
Correct.
one to be announced. So right now, they're gonna get reverse merger with some SPAC, but it hasn't been announced. What we should probably do is create a Twitter account for this channel where we can just kind of tweet out random news. Like if we're gonna do a show once a week, we're not gonna be able to cover a lot of the news, right? So maybe that might be a fun way to like, hey, they just announced something, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and hey to Canadian Bernie's bro, welcome back.
Yeah, we were wondering where you
He's
were.
always on the. We were waiting.
We,
He did apologize though for saying he was sorry he was late, so I'll give him that one. Um, Jessica says, "I've been waiting for the day when an electric camper van is available and economically priced." You
seriously,
and I
me
think
too.
everyone else. I think a lot of people are going to be coming out with that kind of RV vehicle that gives it that. So it's going
What's
to be
interesting with
interesting.
that What's really interesting with that is if you make a camper, you don't have to have a motor or drivetrain or anything. But imagine you built this like fifth wheel that you could tow with like a Cybertruck or a Rivian R1T or some of the new trucks that are coming out. And imagine you had a huge battery pack that would extend range to offset the fact that your drag and your range is going to get reduced by towing it. And you could get to the next national park or some campsite, plug into a 240 and charge it all up for the next day. There's just so much fun. And I think I don't know about you guys, but like for me with COVID, we're big travelers. We love flying to Europe and Asia, and we're not going to be doing that for maybe another 6 months. So we've been thinking about doing RV trips and see this great country of ours. And this is going to probably be one of those things where I mean we're going to miss this wave. We're not going to be ready for the Rivian R1T might ship next year, but it might all be over by then. Yeah, it's called the Cybertruck. But I mean, imagine with the Cybertruck if we had some fifth wheel that we could tow, and not that you couldn't just tow anything that we have currently, but I still kind of think with an EV, the design should reflect that. And again, imagine batteries in the floor and kind of like maybe better insulation to keep you more comfortable, to need less heating and cooling,
So
and I don't know.
I'll talk about the Rivian here in a second because this week they also announced their charging network that they were going to do. So everyone has always built these great charging networks when they build a vehicle. Tesla and the Super Tesla supercharging network. Volkswagen with their Electrify America system, and ChargePoint, of course, coming out with its own great system on its own. But they announced that they're going to put all of the chargers in parks and in general areas of outdoorsiness to keep with the Rivian theme. And I think that's going to be really, really great. And then on top of that, Rivian also has their partnership with Amazon, which we kind of haven't heard a lot about.
Yeah.
But they do plan on making a utilitarian version of the R1S, which is the SUV version, kind of in a boxier version for Amazon, which I think would be really, really interesting to see how that comes up.
Jessica just mentioned. By the way, Johnny, 2 weeks in a row with the big super chat, man. Thank you. We really appreciate you. We need to reach out and see who you are. So thank you for that. Jessica mentioned about the long way up. So I do this show with Matt Farrell called Vice Versa, and he turned me on to Long Way Up. I've binge watched all of them. I watched The Long Way Up, which is the latest one. It's Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman, and they ride motorcycles around the world. And this newest one, they ride electric motorcycles, and they use Rivians. So I just got to say a huge shout out to Harley Davidson and to Rivian, because other companies like backed off and didn't want to be a part of it, but they came to the plate. And Rivian wasn't even ready for production yet. They like rushed it, built them 2 prototypes, troubleshot it, like flew out to see them, installed charging along the way. Because what's interesting is with a motorcycle, you could plug into your house outlet and kind of make it, but you're charging like 180 kilowatt hour. How big is your battery pack on your truck, your Rivian?
So my Rivian battery pack will be the 150. It's the mid-size pack.
You can imagine it would take you
180. Yeah, okay. It would take you forever. It's gonna take you a good chunk of change. But I mean,
it would take you like a week to charge it.
I know. Kudos to Rivian though. In the space of 6 months, because when Long Way Up started, and for those of you that haven't seen The Long Way Up, it doesn't matter if you're a motorcycle geek. It doesn't matter if you're a truck geek. It doesn't matter anything. Go watch it. Charlie is an amazing guy, and so is Ewan. And the camaraderie between the two of them is absolutely awesome. So I'll leave that at that. I'm not going to give any spoilers. But
it's on Apple TV Plus, so check it out.
Yes, Apple TV Plus. But in 6 months, they installed over 300 chargers from the bottom of South America all the way through to Las Vegas. Los Angeles. And I got Las Vegas on the brain because I'm disappearing this weekend, so I'll see you all on Monday. But they've got the charger infrastructure all the way through South America, and they did some great things on it. So great show, and I can't recommend it enough. So
on the topic of charging, another thing as far as if you're investing in companies that are going to be building electric EV commercial trucks and vans and the sort, what you have to keep in mind is the charging network and the routes that they travel is completely different. For example, if you're building the Arrival bus, you don't need to have like chargers all around, because your route might just be like a 30 or 40 mile loop around New York or Chicago or London. So the charging needs and stuff are totally different. You might run your route and then come back home and charge, and another bus comes out and does its thing. So when we talk about like commercial use EVs, you have to have this big charging network that is all around the world and at every destination. Totally different if you're a trucking company. So if you're building like a van, like a transit van for Amazon or for UPS, again, very different requirement potentially. You're not going to be, well, although you might be making deliveries wherever you might need to go, but that kind of stuff, there's a synergy between the charging companies, I think, and the commercial EVs. I'm wondering how much kind of companies buying each other out, and how much of that do you see happening in the next like 2 years? Is every company going to buy a charge network? Is every company going to buy a commercial EV builder? Like, what do you see the network and the market looking like in a couple of years?
So I see it that they're all gonna do small versions to begin with. I think you're gonna see like if you look at my screen here, Amazon with their Rivian prototype. When they release that, I think they're gonna have some kind of their own little infrastructure system that they have, and then eventually I think what you're going to see is you're going to see the big players that are out there now get swallowed up or get, start merging with each other, kind of like we did with cell phones. I mean, who remembers, the early, cell phones, Singular Wireless, for example? They're gone now. They're now part of Sprint, and Sprint just got acquired by T-Mobile. And so you're going to start to see all these little ones get gobbled up, and I think you're going to end up seeing like we do now, where we have majority shareholders in major chunks. And I think that's the way that I foresee that going on.
So it's an interesting thing. As an investor, acquisitions aren't a problem really. I mean, whatever your profit ends up being, is okay. But I do think there's going to be tons of companies that spring forth and kind of get a jump start on either like a factory or a partnership or licensing or some sort of IP in terms of a platform to build cars. And then there might be some like companies getting bought out. In the case of like an Amazon, I almost see them like they're partnering with Rivian, and I think that'll be like how they get their feet wet. But I think in the future they're gonna build their own. There's like they're already moving toward being completely vertically integrated, and currently going with Rivian is a good starting point. You've got these electric trucks that'll be cheaper, and you're also getting some headlines. You're investing in a really cool company. You've got a little bit of an ownership stake, but what says like 3 or 4 years from now there's not another little EV startup that's doing something and Amazon throws a ton of money at it and just buys it out and does it
Yeah.
on their own. So there's going to be mergers, there's going to be a lot of consolidation, there's going to be just generally a ton of movement in the industry. And so again, as an investor, it's really probably important to kind of keep apprised of it. And again, that's why we started this channel, because I found that in the interest of, if you're going to invest in kind of green and frontier companies that are doing really game changing stuff, you got to kind of keep your thumb on the pulse. So why not just make a video and share our findings, right?
So if you look at my screen here, you'll see. So this is actually just from the other day.
Whoa.
So this is the Rivian truck, their delivery truck, followed in fleet or convoy by 3 R1Ts that were obviously out doing some testing and some range playing. But I mean, that's a really nice looking
Is
commercial
that a flat
van
tire?
truck. No, there's not a flat tire. You think they would really have a flat tire out there? Um, no, it was just driving along. But I mean, that's
Okay.
a really nice looking truck, and I think
Yeah.
that they've definitely got, they've got momentum behind them, and I think that they're going to give that a real good setup here shortly. So we'll see.
Yeah.
That's
When I
one
first,
that I would love to see go SPAC, because I think they're either going to go full IPO with the backing that they have, or they're going to do a SPAC. And when they
you're talking
do
about
their
Rivian?
SPAC, yeah, Rivian, sorry. They're going to be really interesting, and they're going to be. The thing is, they've got everything first to market already. I mean, full disclosure, I am an R1T pre-holder. I'm number 3007 or something. One of the first in Texas, so I'm really excited to get mine. And then, of course, I've also got a reservation. I've just about 3 months ago picked up a reservation for an R1S for the wife. So it'll be really interesting to see, how that comes about. So
My prediction is Rivian will do a traditional IPO, and I think it's going to be in 2021. I think it might maybe later in the year. Lucid as well is the other. Those are the two companies I'm really keeping an eye on. They're a little bit later. They're a little bit older. They had really good investing from really deep pockets to begin with, so they've each had a chance to get to factory and manufacture before going public, which isn't always the case. A lot of companies don't quite have enough funding to do that.
I don't think that they're going to go 2021. I think they're
Rivian?
going to go 2022. Same with Lucid. I don't think Lucid's right in the point yet to go. I mean, the one that really springs to my mind when I think about this is Zero Motorcycles. So I have an SR 14 4. They've been around for about 10 years now, and they're a well developed and established motorcycle now. But they're still public. Sorry, they're still private. and they're not going to be going public, I don't think, for at least another 5 years. So it'll be interesting to see how they play out. But I think Rivian, if they do go, they're probably going to go in late 2022 or early 2023. I think is when they would they'd spring it.
Yeah, there's a certain level of timing involved, but both companies, like, you have factories and you're building cars. That's a great time to raise funds because there might be other things to build out or capacity. Typically, when you build a factory, like in the case of Lucid, you're targeting some volume, 50,000 cars a year. But to build out 300,000 cars a year, 500,000 cars a year, requires more capex. So um,
Yeah,
I do believe Rivian, I do believe Lucid will be going IPO in the next 6 months, is my prediction. That's not, I have talked to some people at Lucid and stuff, but they haven't told me anything. Like, I don't have some knowledge that anybody else has. But that is my take.
sure,
Yeah, zero is
Ricky,
definitely.
sure.
I know. I promise you, I don't have anything extra, but the company is poised. Like, they are ready to rock. They've got their factories in place and stuff. But this is kind of what I envisioned. Yeah, Jessica says I could see Lucid going pretty soon as well. Um, this is just an incredibly interesting time. And I think one thing I wanted to bring up, we'll have a video, I think maybe next week, Robert. I have to check our schedule. We're going to talk about battery companies, which will be very interesting to people. But one of the companies I've been doing research into recently is QuantumScape. And they went reverse merger, and they went, public, and their stock has just gone on a tear. They're at like
Through the
a, yeah, they're
roof.
at like a $50 billion valuation or something. And that's a tough number to fathom. I think I missed that one, and I can't buy it at the current prices. I'm going to do an entire video on my channel probably next week on QuantumScape and if they're worth looking into. But my prediction there, just to really, for the people who are watching this stream, you'll have a little bit of a jump start. My prediction is QuantumScape will never build a single battery. And I'm not trying to say that they're doomed or something. I think what they have is if you ever watch Shark Tank, I think they have is like a royalty deal, like a licensing deal. Because even if you figure out the solid state electrolyte, even if you figure out the logistics of a solid state battery, um, yeah, Kelly says the gold rush, absolutely. Even if you figure out the logistics of the solid state battery, you now have step two, which is the manufacture. And I think in 5 years, Tesla is going to be the best battery manufacturing company in the world. One thing about Elon Musk I've realized, I don't think he really cares about cars. He doesn't care about batteries or so. He loves manufacturing. He is a kid in a candy store when he sees those robots building stuff. Like, imagine, like, um, solid metal comes in the doors here and products go out over here, and he obsesses about it. It got him into a little bit of trouble with the Model 3 ramp up because he tried to automate too much. But I think Tesla's goal in the next 5 years is going to be the best manufacturing company on earth. And between SpaceX and Tesla, I think he can very well do that. And at that point, even if you're QuantumScape and you've got some really nice IP, how are you going to manufacture them at a price point that will even make you close? So I think they become a licensing deal, is my prediction. That's the short of it. But it just goes to
So
show
I'm,
you
I'm
how much is at stake here.
I'm not quite sure on that one. So I mean, the thing is, so I come from a battery manufacturing background. My last job was actually working as a battery manufacturer, and I think that you're still going to have the legacies. I think you're going to have the Panasonics. I think you're going to have the I'm drawing blanks on all of them. The Casios and the
No,
like.
you'll have Samsung and CATL and stuff. I
Yeah,
don't argue
but
that. They're going to be around.
I think well, it's like Tesla. They license the tech from Panasonic, and I think they're going to keep doing that. Yes, they have their new cell, but I think their new cell is going to be, just a one-time, spring set, and I think that they're going to have that going for the future. So it's going to be really interesting and seeing what they can get the densities to.
Yeah, the difference is that QuantumScape has no battery manufacturing experience or expertise or knowledge or anything else. They're really like an R&D shop. So that's kind of my point. Like, I think Tesla will buy batteries from everyone they possibly can and build their own and all the above. Like, if there is a
Yeah.
cell on this planet available, I think Tesla wants it. That's how ambitious they are in terms of what they're going to build out. But specifically with QuantumScape, my point is they become like this R&D licensing play. And again, if you're an investor, I don't think that's a problem. There might be an out there. They might even get acquired. Um,
Yeah, I
but
was going to
they're
say, I think QuantumScapes can be acquired. I don't think they're actually going to go into any kind of licensing deal or royalty deal. I think they're going to be acquired straight up for their IP, and they're going to disappear. So that's just my personal opinion on that.
yeah,
So
we'll talk about that entirely in another episode. Yeah,
yes.
thank you guys for joining. Toyota has solid state coming as well. Uh, Bernie Bro says, yeah, their Toyota baffles me. I cannot figure out Toyota. Talking about
So
Toyota's probably one of the best gas car manufacturers on earth. They're probably like one or two in terms of volume. I think VW might be higher. But if I was buying a gas car, Toyota, I think, is a far superior product. But they kind of go back and forth. They've had their mind made up about hydrogen. They've invested a ton of money in that. And the end result has kind of been a compliance card. They've never really built them in any volume. There's no hydrogen refueling infrastructure and stuff. And they have a solid state battery. By the way, 2020 pushed back the Olympics. We were supposed to have the Tokyo Olympic Games in 2020, and they were going to show off this solid state battery. But what you have to remember is that we have solid state batteries today already. It's not like some crazy thing that we can't figure out. We have them, but we have limitations and challenges. One of the biggest ones is charge cycle life. So does Toyota have everything figured out? I don't know. I know I've commented on this before. Your audio is delicious. Well, I'm glad to hear that. The hardest part about YouTube is audio. I gotta tell you, we fight with that all the time. But I appreciate that, Jessica.
so I'm
But
going to
yeah, so
comment
do they
on
have?
something that I'm going to comment on Bernie there for something is that yeah, and kind of what you said, Toyota's got their programs already in order, but they're usually they're uh, they're like Schlumberger. They're never first to market. They're always the best to market. So I think that somebody's going to come out with a better setup, and then we'll see it go on beyond there. I don't think that they're going to come out with the best first off. I would this would be an interesting one. Toyota acquires QuantumScape.
Yeah, I think they might actually be kind of. There might be some R&D in parallel with what QuantumScape is doing. Yeah, we'll find out. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but the solid state battery is going to be like 5 years out. Even QuantumScape in their presentation, they mentioned we're going to have no revenue until 2025, and even in 2026, we're not going to have much. Like they're maybe like $2 billion in revenue, so they're trading at a huge multiple right now, and that is forecasting 5 years out. So again, very early, even though they've been doing this for a long time now. But it is a hard thing to crack, and I don't think that should hold up anything else. We can build EVs today that can go hundreds of thousands of miles and all the rest. And when solid state batteries are ready, even better. They'll just get that much better range and longevity.
So I'll speak to something because Heinz N commented. He said, "Will battery manufacturers be in trouble because of rare earth shortages?" No, I don't think so. I think that we've got some great tech on the horizon as far as recycling batteries and getting the rare earths back out of them to reuse in new materials, and then also putting on the changing up the chemistry to give better chemistry. I think one thing we're going to probably see is graphene and the introduction of graphene to the lithium to build it up. So that would be, that's going to take care of that issue, and it's going to try and, alleviate some of the rare earth issues. If you did want a ticker symbol for a lithium one, I've got a OTC that I'd like to pitch. Ticker symbol ULTHF. That's United Lithium Corp.
That's in the over-the-counter market?
Yeah, it's an over-the-counter on a limit only. Just for complete disclosure, they are 1.5% of my portfolio. They're really nice, and they're going, and they've been taking off quite well. Again, that's ULTHF. In the past, about the past 5 days, they've just been on a nice steady ramp, and I think they're gonna do a lot. The nice thing about them is they actually just signed a right to acquire the Bergby Lithium project, which was a project that was taking off. That people were like, "How did you find all this lithium?" And they've found it. So I think they're well positioned to go forward. So
Good to hear. I love our audience. Like, I wish we could all meet in person. So, Sar Yogev mentions, great show. I wish you guys put a live stream premiere. I need to hire you as our YouTube manager. I don't even think I need to figure out how to do that. And I will do that for next time, because I was actually struggling with this. We went live for 20 minutes without making the video public. And so for 20 minutes, we were just talking to each other, wondering why nobody was joining. So we'll figure that out for sure. Um, it's interesting. Also, I think, Robert, we have a future episode on the battery recycling companies. There's a couple of interesting players that are hopping up. One of the things about the free market is whenever a new opportunity presents itself, you're going to have people who will fill the vacuum. So right now we have to mine all these batteries, because the number of EVs in the world will never be less than it is right now. Again, fast forward 10 years, they're going to be all over the place. So right now mining is cost this much and recycling costs this much, but the mining cost will increasingly rise. For one, just the well-being of and like the cost of living around the world will rise, and the second thing is it's going to be increasingly scarce, and there's going to be huge demand. Think about every company in the world that's going to try to build EVs and build batteries. So the demand is going to skyrocket, to Robert's point about investment opportunities. And second, there's going to be a huge demand for battery recycling. What's really nice is you buy 10 gallons of gasoline, you burn it, it's in the air. You're not recovering that. But in the battery world, you could run 300,000 miles on your battery pack and then turn it in and have like 95% recovery of these products. Because I mean, the lithium didn't disappear. It's all there. All the components are there. There's some like deposits and some cleaning up that has to happen. And I think that's where the engineering, the chemistry has to happen, is in terms of how do you recycle it like very cleanly with minimal waste products and chemicals and toxic fumes and things. And also, how do you recover as much as possible? So you can believe me when I tell you that in the future, we're not going to be like, as there are more EVs that are coming off the road, recycling is going to be a huge part of it. And we will cover it in a future episode.
Well, to two things about that. My electric motorcycle that I built, I used recovered Nissan Leaf cells from a gentleman that crashed his Nissan Leaf. Instead
You
of
got
going
to
to
tell
the
the whole
waste.
story. Tell the story about how that happened.
Okay, I'll tell the whole story. So I bought the car. So I found a guy who had sold it through Progressive. He had purchased it. He had 7 miles on the odometer when he drove it off. Didn't quite know how to drive it in the snow, and plowed it into the bank and destroyed the vehicle.
7, right? 7 miles?
7 miles. 7.
So he
That's
bought
it.
it, did all that
7
paperwork, sat
miles.
in that horrible office with the bad
And
coffee,
took off. Yep.
and took
and destroyed it. And I bought it for about 14,000 under the market price. And when I had it, even having it shipped from up north all the way to Texas, where I'm at, disassembling it and then selling off the parts that I didn't need, I actually made money on the fact that I recycled all those parts. So I came off on the winning side of that one.
Yeah. But you did it at a time when the demand was lower. I think in 5 years, it's going to be like the auctions will roll up and people will be buying them
the
up
auction
instantly.
Well, I mean, you look at the auctions now for Teslas, for wrecked Teslas, you can't get them for anywhere close to the asking price. It's actually cheaper to go out and buy a brand new Tesla from Tesla than it is to actually go to these auctions and buy the wrecked Teslas. So Canadian Bernie Bro says another ticker, if you look at my symbol here, is CNIKF, which is the Canadian Nickel Company. Looks like they just secured a major discovery of nickel cobalt sulfite, and that could be a really interesting one. that comes out, because nickel and cobalt is one of the great things that we need for our cells currently. So it's definitely one thing to look at. I'm going to do a little bit more research on that. Thank you.
Yeah, chemistry, the chemistry companies, the companies that provide the raw materials for, I guess, largely the battery packs. There's not really that much exotic that goes into like the motors and things, for example. So that might be an episode. I don't think we thought about that. It could be a little dry, maybe, right? Talking about companies that are mining
Yeah,
for
I mean,
things. But hey,
it,
if there's interest, let us know. We'll run some. You know what we should do is we should do a poll every week and say, do you want to see this or that, or that, and then let people vote, and we can kind of guide our future that way.
yeah, fair enough.
We need to get Rich from Rich Rebuilds on an episode. People will tune in for
Yeah,
that.
that would be really interesting.
Yeah, and
So,
Canadian Burning Bro says Redwood. That's another company that we'll definitely talk about.
Yeah, we've actually got them already on our docket to talk to them about. I've done a lot of work with Rich Rebuilds. So when he did the Tesla, or his wrecked Tesla Cyberquad, I was the one that helped him figure out his gearing, his ratios, after he saw it at the fully charged show, and it was good.
All right, I think we're nearing the hour. Thank you guys for joining us. Apologies about the technical difficulties. We will get better at this. This is our second time doing this, right? It's not too bad, and we'll keep at this. Next week, I think what we're gonna do is record a little pre-recorded video that we will release, not live, in honor of the holidays. We'll all be taking the week off, and then we will be back the week after that with a live episode. And I will look into the feedback from SAR and make sure that we have a premiere or some way to let people know that this is happening, instead of nothing, and then there's a live video, and it's happening 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, apologies for that, and hopefully next time we'll have everything working out. So,
but the
thanks,
cool
David,
part is
for
all the
joining.
yeah, but the cool part is all the screwing up we did was before we went public, so I can just cut that out and nobody even has to know.
Nope, nobody has to know, except for the fact that we just told everyone. So,
yes, thank you guys so much for watching. This is we're finalizing the name, right? It is the 2 Bits and Cents Investing Club, and we will be coming to you live every week, and we'll try to cover all the interesting little side aspects of this EV renaissance and the fact that we're in the middle of a very major gold rush, as somebody mentioned in the comment section. So thank you for watching. If you have feedback for the show, or if you want to be on the show, I've had one email so far from somebody who wants to be on the show. We will make that work. We want to see all of you guys. And again, we're going to put a link to the new channel in the description. So go over there and subscribe. And when I see enough of you guys over there subscribing, I'll know that we can go live over there and not here. So we'll keep going live on this channel until that time. But this is all going to be republished after we stop here on our new channel, and we will have a link in the description. Anything else?
Just good that Canadian Bernie Bro will be on time next time. So we're going to hold you to that this time.
Yeah, please do. We got a show to run here. So
we can't be waiting around all day.
Cheers, Simon. Yes.
Cheers.
Absolutely. That sounds like a great vacation when all this is over in 2021. Do a little New Zealand and Australia. We'll see.
New Zealand and Australia is the only place in the world that I have not set foot on. So I've hit everyone else, just not New Zealand. So
Jessica says she wants to be on the show. That sounds good, Jessica. I like your insight you've had on Twitter. So yeah, let's do that. We'll figure out a way to make this happen. And I think what we should do is do a few more live shows, just us, to figure out we got like a good thing going and we got all the logistics figured out, and then we'll have maybe guests in a couple of weeks. So you bet I'll reach out to you on Twitter and we'll make sure we connect. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, and by the way, please try, if you care, if you want to see these live, hit that notification bell. I've been hearing from people that they are not getting my notifications for new videos going out. I'm not sure what exactly was happening with YouTube and stuff, but hit that bell so you do get notifications. And if you don't, let me know. Leave me a comment. I'm hoping it's working as it should, and we'll catch you guys next week.
See ya.